In today's Spread the Kindness moment, it is International Random Acts of Kindness Week this week, a week where kindness takes place around the world. And it gives me great pleasure to talk to somebody who is an authentic leadership expert and has jumped in with Spread the Kindness since 3 years ago. Tana Heminsley, President and CEO of Authentic Leadership Global, believes kindness and the workplace can go hand in hand. Welcome, Tana, and tell us why you feel this is the way businesses can work today.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. It's great to be here. And I think even more importantly than going hand in hand, I think that kindness is good for the bottom line. And as business people, we're always looking at how can we support the bottom line. So there are some really great reasons why it's important. And when I step back and think kind of philosophically, why is it important for me in my 30 years of business and leadership experience, what I've seen is that every employee has a story, and their life has involved times of joy and difficult times. And because of those difficult times, every employee has a strong inner critic, or many of them do, internally critical voice. And when we're kind to them, so assume that employees are already harder on themselves than we could ever be on them. So if we are kind to them, then we wake up the fact that others can be kind to them, and they can be kinder to themselves and also kinder to others. And so there's this ripple effect that happens. And so there is a huge amount of research that's happening around the world that is exploding in the organizational realm. And a couple of articles that I just wanted to highlight. There's and just jump in if I get so excited about this.
Go for it. Okay,
great. So there was one that in 2015 that came out from Harvard Business Review, one of my favorites, and it is Emma Seppala. I'm just going to look at my notes, make sure I get her name right. And it was called Why Compassion is a Better Managerial Tactic Than Toughness. And so what she talks about in the article is that that the brain responds more positively when a boss is empathetic, practices empathy, and when an employee can trust their boss more when they experience empathy. And so when the employee trusts the boss, then their performance improves. Improves in terms of creativity, it improves in terms of the client experience. And so those things overall will improve the bottom line for organizations. So that's one example. Another example that was great was an article by Amy Moran, and it's in Forbes magazine from 2015 as well. And she outlines benefits. So improved retention. And we all want to retain, particularly the great employees, that we don't want them walking out the door. So improved retention, decreased stress, increased health overall for individuals, and I'll add a couple. So increased innovation and creativity, and improved customer experience. Those are kind of my observations as well, and particularly from a neuroscience perspective. If I am happier and challenged with the right level of stress and some empathy and compassion around me, then I will be more likely to be more innovative, and my brain will be hardwired to be more balanced and optimistic, particularly under stress. So there are great scientific reasons why compassion is also really helpful in the workplace.
Fantastic. Two very powerful articles, and you cited them so people can find out more about them. And you, as a leadership expert, are you emphasizing this too when you deal with companies, how compassion can make such a difference in their work environment?
We absolutely are. In my work both with Virtus as well as with Authentic Leadership Global, we're having conversations. You're giving me goosebumps, actually. We're having conversations about why compassion is a better response than managing based on fear. And so, fear-based management and positional credibility is kind of old paradigm. And now we're looking at supportive leadership and empathy, and learning how to practice empathy and compassion. Now, there's two examples that I wanted to talk about within and around the workplace. And the first is when an employee makes a mistake. So if you assume that an employee has a strong inner critic, and they're already tougher on themselves than you can ever be with them, if you respond to them in a way that is compassionate, and you may be modeling a different response than they will ever have experienced before. they will know that they can feel safe to make mistakes, which means that they'll take the appropriate amount of risks and they'll innovate more, which is very important in the, you know, in the business world right now, and you know, in the changing world that we're facing. Innovation is really key. So reacting, you know, I remember myself making a mistake, a big mistake on a project that I worked on in the late 90s, and going into my boss and telling him about it, and, you know, shaking in my boots as I went in. And he was such a great boss. I'll never forget it. He said, you know, my dad told me if I wasn't making mistakes, I wasn't working hard enough. I wasn't trying hard enough. So he said, you know, did you learn from it? I said, yes. And he said, will you do it again? I said, no, definitely learned.
I learned.
And so here I am recounting that story to you of something that happened years and years ago. And it's always something that I remember in my life.
Beautiful story, and so important to teach that with leadership. No longer does do as I say work, right? It has to be openness, resiliency, and an enterprising organization. And there is another paper called Leading with Kindness that was written on these traits of good leaders. As well, Random Acts of Kindness Week, Tana, is about doing certain intentional acts of kindness. And you have always been a big proponent of slowing down. Tell us why this is especially important in what's happening in Vancouver and what you see.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes, slowing down and pausing and taking a moment and remembering people's good intentions. So I want to share some shocking statistics with you about what's happening in terms of motor vehicle accidents in Vancouver. So these are 5-year averages. I'm just going to look at my notes here. Excuse me. So 2009 to 2013, 5-year averages, where there is, this is in Metro Vancouver, this is the average, 5-year average, 1,400 incidents, 1,400 injured. That's just for cyclists, for where injuries for where there was a motor vehicle or a heavy vehicle involved. In British Columbia, 12,000 incidents, 5-year average, 3,100 of those were injuries. This one's even more shocking. Hit and runs, 49,000, 5-year average, 49,000 hit and runs, where 2,200, of those people were actually injured. And then where animals are involved, 5-year average, 9,900 incidents and 450 injuries. So it's shocking to me and makes me really concerned, where a shift in mindset and slowing down and remembering others' good intentions, whether animal or individual on a bike, or just when we get into a car, if we can just slow down and just pause and not get hooked by the dysfunctional mind. Unfortunately, our minds are unhelpful a lot of the time, where we become pessimistic and where we default to the negative. And so if we can stay in the positive and remember people's good intentions and practice empathy rather than judgment when we're in our cars and we're heading to work as leaders, then we can make a difference and we can reduce those statistics. I have a belief around that, and I would love to make a challenge for everyone listening, is to slow down, take a moment, remember others' good intentions, and be kinder, and have the intention to be kinder when we're on the road.
I love that. That would slow down a lot of road rage. So I hope people take you up on that challenge during this International Week of Kindness. And Tana, last but not least, where can people find out more about the leadership consulting that you do?
Great. Thank you for asking. It's my new website is brand new and just up. So tanaheminsley.com is where they can find me. Tanaheminsley.com, and you can find information both about Authentic Leadership Global and the work that I do there, as well as Virtus, where I do most of my leadership development work. Thank you.
You are welcome, Tana. Thank you for teaching us to remember empathy without judgment and the power of kindness in your driving and in your workplace. Thank you for being an authentic leader with us today and sharing the power of kindness during this International Random Acts of Kindness Week.
It's my pleasure.